welcome back to the Global Gaming Women Fair Game podcast, recorded here at the beautiful Light and Wonder studio. I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Anika Howard. How are you?
It's so great to be here and to see you. And this is we haven't done this season, so this is our first time one-on-one again.
Yes,
so it's
exactly.
Nice.
I know. I love it. We love it. We vibe. We have so much in
we
common.
We do. So
lifestyle.
And I love it. I like, and it's always good to be back here in Vegas. I don't get back as often, so I'm happy to be here.
Yay. Well, I'm so excited for this episode today. Anna Sainsbury, I mean, she is just such a household name in
Legendary.
the industry. Yeah. And she's been such an inspiration from afar for me for a while, just because of her just obvious passion and how that has fueled innovation and her incredible entrepreneurial, ideation. There's nothing more inspiring to me, that I think in terms of building a vision and bringing a vision to life, right? Building something from scratch. That's what is quite honestly one of my favorite things to do, right? What I find the most fulfillment in is really, bringing a vision to life. So I can't wait to hear about, how her unique journey has, fueled her success and peel back the layers. But when you think about, your career and you think about things you've built from scratch, what are the most, proudest accomplishments in terms of visions that you brought to life?
I think there are a number. I really enjoyed early career, my first, I think, corporate opportunity was with Harrah's, now Caesars. And so being able to say that it was part of building the interactive infrastructure for Caesars. And so being kind of the first interactive employee and really navigating those uncertain waters before it was a thing. And it was just more like, is this a fad? What's going on? I never felt that way, but it was still something that when I think about it, the industry was still embracing. And to now just see what has come of just kind of my career really growing as the industry adoption of technology and interactive has grown as well. So I really like that. But I think really the thing that I'm most proud of right now is Wonder Nation. I love that the Machinteca Pequot Tribal Nation put the faith in me to be able to help them bring this organization to life and to put me at the helm. And I'm just really excited about the things that we're doing and what the future holds.
Yeah. I was hoping you would talk a little bit about that. I gave you a little tee up.
Thank you.
But yes, what you're doing is so cool. You also are such an inspiration to me. I'm so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished. And to have that perspective too, right? To see those early points in the industry and then how that has shaped and formed
everything.
You. Yeah. And everything.
Yes. And then even too, when I think about kind of Anna and what she's been able to do with GeoComply and all the things that they've been able to accomplish, it's been great because I remember kind of working with her very, very early on when kind of at the genesis of it. And then when they were getting featured in Wall Street Journal and just all of these amazing things, it's great to see what her and her team, because that's the great thing, because not only is she empowering for herself, but she has some really just amazing women leading the charge with her as well.
Yes. I know I've heard such good things from, some other people at GeoComply about her leadership style and her, passion and commitment to advancing gender equity. And I'm excited to hear her talk about it because I don't even think, I know she's passionate about it, but I think it's, I actually think this is probably true for all of us, right? Of course we're passionate about it.
But it becomes organic, right?
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. It just naturally, is magnetic and it just naturally happens. I love that. But yeah, bringing a vision to life, my current job right now, right? I proposed it, assumptive invite, on my CEO's calendar. I was like, feedback and proposal. I see this gap, right? And over the last 2 years, I've been able to completely build our, event marketing division from scratch, have been able to generate millions in revenue and be able to create systems that actually track and measure ROI in a meaningful way to track that attribution, and have created our hosted event series that is uplifting our brand. And it's so cool to, once again, just see a vision brought to life. There's nothing more fulfilling. And it's cool too, kind of similar to you about through lines and how it's all connected. When I think about what has brought me to success in my current role in building and leading event marketing for Insight Global, it comes back to Global Gaming Women and WISE, Women in Sports and Events, Las Vegas, when I was president for 2.5 years, right? These professional industry membership associations. Of course, a big mission for both of those, or both organizations, is advancing women right in their careers. And it is professional development. And it's so cool because another like proudest vision that I've been able to bring to life is the inaugural Women of Inspiration event for Las Vegas, right?
And that's such an amazing event, like each year, and seeing the women that show up, but also the women that are honored. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's amazing. I mean, there wasn't anything like it, right? That was recognizing gaming and sports, women who were playing pivotal key roles in the overlap of those two industries and the surge of those two industries. That's continuing to happen because of PASPA being overturned and, the influx of sports in Vegas. But, it's become the flagship event for Wise Las Vegas, which is I'm so proud.
No, and I think it's good. And I think when you kind of look at everything, and we look at, we've been talking a lot about technology this season, and you just realize that that's the genesis of so much opportunity for women. And so it's great to see that, when we hear Anna's story, and I'm so excited to hear and just kind of listen to your conversation with her a little bit later, but to be able to say that, when you see a gap in the market, or you see an opportunity, and you raise your hand and say, yes, I can fill that gap. I know how to, fix that, or kind of a solution that will work, and be able to see it in your mind's eye. But then there's this such amazing sense of a fulfillment and accomplishment once you kind of take that idea from a seed and then you see it come to life.
Yes. And the execution piece, right? Like, so many people have ideas.
Yeah.
So everybody has an idea, but right, like we would say this during my presidential term with Wise a lot. We were like, okay, don't be a food critic, be a chef.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we have enough food critics. Like, yes, of course there are gaps to fill, but if you're not going to execute and actually fill it, then
you need to have the discipline and the commitment to follow through on those ideas. And Anna has that in spades.
Yes. I can't wait to hear her story. Right. So, of course, with every Spotlight series, the whole purpose is to shine a light on the unique career journeys of women in our industry. Because you never know, when hearing about, somebody else's journey and their unique career path and what they've overcome, that could become a catalyst, right, for beautiful changes in your own life, your career. Stories are permission slips. So very excited to hear about, what brought her to the success at GeoComply, and really like peeling back the layers on her mindset too. And what have always been, right, her North Stars and through lines. But okay, I'm gonna read off my little script here because her bio is so good. I don't want to miss a second of it. Anna Sainsbury is the co-founder, former CEO, and current executive chair of GeoComply, leading cybersecurity firm specializing in geolocation compliance solutions. And under her leadership, GeoComply has grown into a global powerhouse, providing services to major clients and ensuring amazing compliance across various industries. It's really not just gaming, right? And she has been recognized. Her vision, her dedication has been instrumental for the company's success. Their continued innovation, including achieving unicorn status. They've had a valuation of over $1 billion. She also serves on the board of the American Gaming Association, plays a key role in the evolution of our industry, has a crazy commitment to social responsibility that has become such a important factor in what she's been able to build, and especially her work fighting child exploitation, advancing gender equity in the workplace. We'll talk more about that, but she's been recognized for so many accolades. I can't even list them all, right? But the Power List, Women of Influence, RBC Momentum Award, right? Just the list goes
on and on.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Yes. You've worked with her. Anything else that you would add?
I think she's the full package. She's a wife, she's a mom, she's, you definitely see that she's an advocate. I think one of the things too is that she has this amazing heart. And so, a lot of what's at her core is kind of giving back and being of service. And I think we talked about this a little bit before in one of our other episodes about servant leaderships, and understand that, to lead is to be of service. And I think she really encapsulates that.
Yeah. Oh, that was so well said. So well said. Oh my gosh, let's bring her in. So excited.
All right.
Yay. Well, Anna, welcome to GGW Fair Game podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with your audience and yourself.
Yes, this is so exciting to have you on the podcast. You are such a household name in the industry and even beyond, right, the gaming industry. You touch so many industries with the innovative, right, technologies and practices that you have built. You just brought such visibility to such an important, needed gap. And so it's just for anybody who's inspired by innovation, right, this is just such a remarkable, opportunity to get this time with you. So thank you. But so many people.
I'm very flattered.
Yes. So many people, right, know about your big accomplishments, but we're so excited to peel back the layers and really talk about, what got you there and the insights, right, and those through lines that shaped your journey. I know you're, a huge advocate for gender equity, right? Tons of work in child exploitation. There are a lot of through lines of how that, right, social impact work has shaped, right, your compliance trajectory. So very, very excited to hear about, origin stories and through lines and all the things that brought you to where you are today. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us about how you got started.
Yeah, well, I entered the industry working in the super cool and sexy aspect, which was on compliance testing. Internationally, primarily land-based slot machines was the big area for a company that doesn't exist anymore as GLI acquired them. It was called TST. And it was really that kind of made me realize that I love the gaming industry. I like how international and dynamic it is. And that's where I fundamentally started to understand what the expectations of regulators are, what the operators needed, and then what was feasible in order to open up a market. And so once the US gaming market had whispers that it was going to open, it was obvious that new compliance technologies were going to be required in order to meet the requirements, especially of the federal government, where it was going to be a states' rights initiative, and therefore we were going to have to block some states and allow others. And then, of course, there was all the conversation of who was going to be the VPN police, as I believe it was the Washington Post coined it. And I put my hand up and said, you know what, we can cobble something together. And therefore, David and I did. And 14 years later, here we are with a solution that fights fraud, locates users, identifies who people are, and obviously, there's been so many ebbs and flows within the industry, and we've had the wonderful opportunity to continue to innovate to meet those needs.
Yeah. I mean, you shaped, right, the landscape in terms of the legalization around North America and gaming and online. Like, you were such a key, or are such a key player in literally shaping that in this kind of golden age that we get to be a part of. So it's absolutely incredible the impact you've been able to make. What was really, the big inspiration? What was the catalyst for the idea and the concepts?
When you say that I shaped it, I would argue at the beginning, it was the fact that David and I were in the right place. We were in Washington, D.C. The D.C. lottery wanted to be the first lottery to go online. And D.C. is quite a dramatic and newsworthy place. And so there were a few people that were very vocal on Twitter at the time, making many arguments as for how it would be bad for society and that a lot of people wouldn't have voted for it and didn't want it. And we were taking that into account. And of course, so was the lottery, and looking at what technologies would enable the productivity to happen. And that's really where we kind of looked at, we were going to need to not just know where someone is, but actually be able to block people that were in federal buildings and in neighboring states, and block VPNs and proxies and anonymizers. And so I would argue that really the advocates that didn't want it were the ones that were highlighting the issues that could happen far before the industry was really thinking about it. And they're the ones that helped us shape really how GeoComply was going to have to solve those problems, and allowed us to sort of step in as experts that had also thought about how we could overcome those challenges in order to open up the market and allow it to flourish like it has all these years later.
Oh, that is such a powerful point. And I love that as just kind of a lesson overall, right? Sometimes the biggest challengers, right, to your point, that's what can shape, right, fixing the challenge, right? Filling the gap. You need to have that, that kind of like tension in order to be able to, innovate. That's really interesting. I love that point.
You mentioned a little bit on that over the years, I've been able to work on how can we get more women in the gaming space? How can we have more female leaders within GeoComply? What can we do there? How can we have more women speakers within the industry?
Yes.
And I would kind of argue like all of those things, including my passion for protecting young people and vulnerable children on the internet, those happen much later. Like really the number one problem for the longest period of time for GeoComply was to try and create a market that was going to be able to pay our bills and to pay us enough money to cover our costs of the technology, but also hire a team that was going to be able to support the level of compliance and integrity that the regulators needed and that we needed. And so for, I don't know, at least the first 5 years, it was fighting for our life, and the values really came later for GeoComply. And at the beginning, it was about fighting to solve a problem and fighting to open up a market and keep that market sustainable.
Yeah.
So that was a fun part of the journey.
Yes. Yeah, you got to build it. You got to build it first. But no, that's so important. And then I know we've talked a little bit about kind of the through lines. You mentioned, right, jokingly that, compliance, isn't the most sexy, necessarily path, but the importance of it, right? When you really see that full picture, I mean, I think being able to solve those gaps and, right, I'll let you explain, you're the compliance expert, but right, how it goes beyond just fraud and combating fraud, and how it goes into keeping money out of pockets of criminals, therefore protecting, right, children and vulnerable populations. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, I guess in the most simple form, when we were starting out, especially, right, you're like, I just need to verify that people are in the state. And so that seems kind of simple now, where you're like, well, Uber knows where to pick me up all the time, and they can drop off my food to wherever I am when I order it. So how can location be hard? And then, really what you learn on the integrity side of the gaming industry is whenever there's like a financial incentive, the sort of creative fraudsters really start working their creative juices and their innovative side. And what we find is that we spend a lot of our time not just identifying so that all the good players can play, but making sure that we're a part of the trust that the operators are building with the regulators, and that's keeping the people that are stealing identities away. But not just saying, okay, those are users that we're not going to allow on these sites. It's taking responsibility to the fact that those people have stolen someone else's identity and are probably money laundering. And then, for me, I'm personally very curious and get a little bit outraged by things. And I think just kind of saying like, oh, we blocked them, that's enough. It's like, well, how are they getting this money, and what are they doing with this money, and where are they finding these stolen identities, and how much personally identifiable information is leaked on the dark web? And that's kind of the other aspect that GeoComply's initiative focuses on is helping law enforcement agencies and nonprofits on that side, especially a lot of them are just dealing with IP addresses with a lot of the cases that are reported to law enforcement. And we know that most criminal groups are hiding behind VPNs, and that's where they have anonymized their IP address. And it makes it very difficult for law enforcement to follow up on any of these cases. Now, I say that, and I want to acknowledge one thing that's amazing about the gaming industry is other industries suffer from the fact that they just have an IP address as a location for them when something bad is happening, where the gaming industry has been going above and beyond and looking beyond an IP address to locate where a user is for well over 12 years now. And we have pinpoint accurate data that we require, and we make sure that that data has never been tampered with, so we know that that is the exact location you were at the time the transaction happened. And so I think it's one of the great things that the industry has brought to the law enforcement agencies that work in the gaming space, is that we really do take compliance and integrity seriously within this industry.
Yeah. Well, I think that's sexy. That's so inspirational, right? I mean, that's so beyond, right? The day-to-day, right? The, mundane kind of optics. It's so beyond, right? It's that big picture and being able to have, right, that vision of how your work is impacting, so much beyond, right? Just what's right in front of you. It's so visionary, right? It's so powerful. How do you think, right, your passions and your individual purpose, and you had mentioned, right, your innate kind of curiosity overall, how do you feel like that fueled you as an entrepreneur and just as a person who wants to make a difference in society?
I mean, I am like a fiend for problems. So that is both a blessing and a curse because it can leave me without focus from time to time. But because I'm always looking for problems, I'm always looking for a better way. It means that there's some innovation in there that I can piece together. So I think that's definitely one of the great qualities that are required in an entrepreneur. And then I also would argue sometimes, and I'm not quite sure if it's a bit of a goldfish brain, but somewhat of ignorance can be bliss. I'm quite forgetful of bad experiences, so I will do the same thing over and over, even if it does burn me until I get a win. And so I think that can really help kind of drive on the grit and relentlessness that is required, as an entrepreneur or just as someone that's trying to push for something better within their own roles. It's very easy to get shut down and for people to say no and to turn around or say not right now. I think that for starters, GeoComply has been, and I have been very lucky with our timing, and that is definitely a factor. But the other factor is kind of being relentless, continually pushing and falling on your face and picking yourself back up and trying again.
Yeah. I mean, great timing, but also, right, like timing and opportunity, meeting preparation and meeting commitment and meeting, right, energy. You're right. And I love that you mentioned too, right, not even just necessarily entrepreneurs, but anybody, right, seeing a vision, right, or wanting to solve a gap, or, seeing, the next level for themselves. Absolutely. And I agree too, right? Like sometimes I look back on maybe some of my proudest accomplishments and I'm like, gosh, if I had known how difficult that would be, I might have been scared away, but I'm glad that I did it. Yeah, I know. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I was a little bit ignorant and now I'm ready for the next thing. But yeah, it's like, oh no, wait, that was really hard. But you get so excited about the fulfillment and bringing a vision to life. Oh, what is better? In my opinion, I love that, building from scratch.
There's also there's always this daunting part of a project or an innovation where it just seems like pace is so slow, you're never going to get there, no one understands you, and you're like, why do I do this? I almost get to it every time with almost every project I work on. But I think that at the end of the day, kind of being forgetful of those negative experiences can be a real blessing.
Yes. And it's usually that, right, like downtime, I've noticed, at least in my career, that point of questioning everything right before it takes off. So yes. I'm always like, thank goodness I didn't let that break me. I love that. And so, I mean, a through line that, is I think pretty obvious, right? And the impact that you've been able to make and, right, the evolutions of your career is that humanization factor, right? Being able to see that big picture about, right, how compliance and, all of the efforts, right, are, combating not just the day-to-day, but overall bad actors in society, but also, right, I've heard wonderful things from people who work at GeoComply, about your leadership style, about the culture that you have fostered, and so tell us a little bit more about that, about your intentionality as you have evolved GeoComply, what you see working as a leader and through, company culture and how that's been able to drive results.
I think, the other thing that's kind of critical, and I think I touched on this before, is that really we didn't even know to have values for a long time within the organization. Like we were kind of in the 50 to 70 people for a very long time at GeoComply. You got to remember, we started in the early part of the industry. There wasn't a whole lot of growth. We were talking about poker markets, and it was essentially New Jersey, Delaware, and Nevada for the longest time. And that was just sustaining a couple operators and a couple suppliers to survive and push through in order to be able to convince some other states that this was worthwhile. And PASPA being struck down was something that wasn't in our initial business plan and was a total delight in terms of the trajectory of the growth for GeoComply and also our customers. So the values came later when we realized we needed to have a sustainable and succinct way to communicate who we are and what we're doing and how to help new people that were coming faster within the organization to get up and running and understand how to make decisions. And that's really where we kind of anchored into like a few of the excellent people that have been at GeoComply for a long time and almost said what makes these people so great, and then wrote those values from the team that really came up with the initial idea and pushed through. So it was very much organic and slower than you would initially think. I mean, again, we were very ignorant and didn't know how to build a company with 500 people in it.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, it reminds me a lot of Insight Global and our kind of evolution within our shared values. And people on the podcast have heard me talk about it, but exactly, right. There was a point, about, right, like, I don't know, 8-ish years ago that our CEO took everybody out to this hardcore retreat in Utah and, brought those original people, right? The highest performers, right? That have made the most impact and peeled back the layers on what resonated with them. And that's what, our shared values were born out of. And they've been a huge part of our culture, right? That anchor, and knowing, right? Actually, I was about to say knowing where we stand. One of our shared values is always know where you stand, right? So being able to have that shared language, and just knowing that the people around you, right, embody certain qualities that result in success. So I think that is a great point, right? It's not instant. There's always an evolution, but being able to get there, that's what creates that sustainability and that passion to, commit more effort to the shared goals. So I love that. Culture is so important. What do you think?
It is really important.
Yeah. What do you think, kind of as before we get to our last question, what would be kind of your biggest nuggets of advice, right, for somebody who is getting started, right? But I actually, once again, going back to what you said earlier, it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's for anyone who has, a vision, right, of what the next echelon might be or a gap that they can fill. What do you think is like your biggest advice or the biggest takeaway from your journey?
I think the biggest advice that I would say is having the point of view of the problem is the most critical factor in the success of anything that you want to commit to. So what is the problem? Do people want to solve that problem? Because there are a lot of problems that exist that people mope about, but really they don't want to fix it. And so let alone pay to fix it in a way that's actually going to cover the cost of what it is to solve it and to fund the service levels that are needed to really solve the problem from start to finish. So I think that is something that we always focus on, that I always focus on, and that requires a lot of empathy for like who the end player is and then who's actually going to be paying to solve the problem and integrating any type of solution, especially in technology. Then I would say this new factor has been hitting us hard over the last 18 months, not just GeoComply, but the industry and technology and other organizations is it sustainable to solve this problem, or is AI going to solve it faster in the next coming months? So I think looking for like directness on solving a challenge that is both commercially viable and suitable for the market. So those are really the most important things. And sometimes I think these days, now that there's so many investors in the marketplace and there's been lots of conversations about IPO and going public, that people can get a little bit lost in the developing slides and the business plan and raising money versus like a proof of concept, an audience or a target buyer, and then seeing if it's sustainably going to help the market be better and deliver better products in the gaming industry, the players at the end of the day need to be having a positive experience, and we need to be innovating for them. So those are like the most critical things. All of the rest of the business admin can come later. But a really good idea needs to resonate with the end user.
Yes. Ooh, Anna, that was so powerful. I'm very inspired because you're right. It's all about, right, how are you positioning it for who's actually buying it, right? How are you speaking their language and positioning it to be a solve for what's going on? And I think that's such an important point. There are a lot of problems, but are people actually going to want to pay to solve them? That's so important. And you need to understand your customer enough to know if they're going to put dollars there.
Yeah, and time, right? I mean, everyone is pushing very hard to grow their business, and they've got tech debt and teams that have priorities. So it's much more nuanced and complicated than sometimes we all think. But I see a lot of good marketing and a lot of good messaging, and I see a lot of conversations in the industry, but I'm also aware there's a lot of conversations we've been having in this industry that are solvable problems that haven't been solved, and that's for a reason.
Yeah. So interesting.
It's not getting prioritized.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, our favorite way to close out every Spotlight series is to hear about the best compliment that you have ever received and how it positively impacted the trajectory of your life or career.
Well, I think it goes back, and I don't know if it was like a direct compliment. I look at it as just someone seeing that I could do better than I had done. I would say that I didn't have a whole lot of direction when I was a teenager, and I had this one teacher that just put me in the seat of a capable person, and not saying I could do better, but just sort of saying, you're one of the top people. This is what top people do. And then it allowed me to see myself that way, and I just performed better. And sometimes I think it was almost like, just wear the hat and walk the walk, even if you don't really have the skill set to win. And I feel like that sort of helped guide me in a way that I could put myself in a number of positions where arguably you would argue I wasn't qualified to be. I'm not a lawyer, so working in compliance is a little odd for someone that studied interior design. But really, if you have a passion and you're committed to a good outcome, that you can really deliver anything. So that was a photography teacher in high school.
Oh, I love that. And it sounds like that teacher really affirmed your potential. And
yeah, he did, and found a way to connect with me where I probably didn't know who I was at the time,
but saw that in you and was able to affirm it. And I love that answer, right? And I love that point. And this is why we ask the question, right? It could be the smallest action, and that could become, right, something that is so important to an individual in terms of, how they see themselves and what they can, accomplish. So I love that. We should all be affirming potential in everyone we see it in. That's incredible. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Anna. This has been amazing. We're so, so grateful for, your time, your insights. These are such good nuggets. I cannot wait to hear how they resonate with our listeners and help them change the trajectory of what could be possible for them too.
Thank you so much for having me.